Hi, friends. I've got a lot to share with you today. It's a very busy astrology coming up in the next 3 weeks. So, the first thing I want to share is that the sun moves into 0 degrees of Aries, otherwise known as the Spring Equinox. This year, that is happening on March 19th at 11:06 p.m. Eastern Time. So Aries is this cardinal fire energy of beginning something new, right? It's a new cycle, it's a new year, new growth is beginning to happen. Things are taking to seed and budding so that they can come to fruition over the spring and summer months. So that's a great time to think about what goals do you have? Kind of more short-term goals, like what are you feeling excited and fired up about, motivated? It's spring cleaning time. We sort of get this urge to clean out the old so that we can make more space for new, fresh energy to come in. Open your windows, you know. So I did a video last year all about spring equinox energy and the tarot of that. I will link that at the end of this video so you can learn more about that. What I'd really like to focus on though, and the big energy in the next coming weeks, is that we have two eclipses. The first is a penumbral lunar eclipse on March 25th, and the second one is going to be what they're calling the Great American Total Solar Eclipse on April 8th. And depending on where you are in the United States, you will be able to see that partially or in full. Definitely look it up online and make sure you get your NASA approved eclipse viewing glasses. So the lunar eclipse is happening during a Libra full moon. The sun will be at 5 degrees of Aries and the moon will be at 5 degrees of Libra. And then the solar eclipse is happening at the new moon in Aries when the sun and moon are both sitting together exactly conjunct at 19 degrees of Aries. And Chiron will also be at 19 degrees of Aries that day. Okay, so the eclipses are taking place in Libra and Aries. What does this mean for you? First of all, you'll want to check where you have Aries and Libra in your birth chart. So they are opposite signs and they will be on opposite houses. So you may have it in your first and seventh house, your second and eighth house, your third and ninth house, your fourth and 10th house, fifth and 11th, or sixth and 12th. And that matters because that's showing you where in your personal life you may be feeling this tension for change. Eclipses bring about some kind of new revelation, something I didn't see before, some way or place that I was stuck before. And now it's like there's a reset or a reboot. The sun is eclipsed by the moon. I see it, it's bright, and then it's completely covered over and concealed. And then that shadow comes off and woo, I can see again, right? So it's like my eyes were dark and now they're open. I was blind and now I can see. So what is being revealed to you in a certain part of your life? So depending on the houses, that might be showing you something. For instance, fourth house is home and family, 10th house is your career out in the world, right? Second house is about your own resources, your self-worth, your money, your finances. Eighth house is how you partner with others to get what you need through their resources or through collaboration. So something might be, some new information might be coming into you around these eclipses. Let's talk about the Aries Libra archetypes. Okay. So Aries is very much about the self, my own will. What do I want? What do I need? What am I motivated around? What are my goals? Right? How do I fight for and advocate for myself? And how do I express my autonomy in the world? Libra, where the opposite is happening, is all about relationships. How and when do I compromise and sacrifice to create peace and harmony in relationship and to really, support what is needed for the other or for the relationship container itself, right? It's not only what I want and it's not self-driven, it's we driven or thou, my sacred partner driven. So I feel like the eclipses in the Aries Libra axis are really trying to teach us and show us something about our old patterns in terms of relationship. How do we do this dance between self and other? And what new energy might we bring to that to create more contentment, more growth for ourselves, more generosity with ourselves and others, right? Depending on where you've been on that axis. Maybe you're someone who is much more Libra oriented in your own chart and in your relationships, and you give, 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 and it's never about you, and you're always attending to the needs of the relationship or others first. And maybe these eclipses bring some revelation around that there's an imbalance here and it doesn't feel equal or reciprocal, and I need to stand more in my own firmness and my own boundaries and assert myself more directly around my needs. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're someone who tends to really put yourself first and really know what you want, but maybe this eclipse season is bringing more awareness to how do I be more fair-minded and attentive to what my partner, my friend, my colleague needs, and really listen more than I assert, and really, create space for someone else to show up. So I think that's really important energy to pay attention to. I do want to call attention to one other thing, that on May 21st, 2 days after the sun moves into Aries, Venus and Saturn are coming into an exact conjunction on that day. The conjunction within 3 degrees really starts March 19th through the 23rd. So that whole week, um, Venus and Saturn in Pisces together. Now, Venus is what we adore and value and love in ourselves and others. It also relates to our friendships. It relates to how we show affection, love language. Saturn is about boundaries, limitations, taking things very seriously. What are we committed to? What are we not committed to? If we're committed, what is the plan? What is the strategy? What are the expectations and demands of ourselves and others? It takes things really seriously because it wants to succeed in the long term. When Venus and Saturn come together, it's really an opportunity to look at what are our goals around our relationships, around what we um, think has inherent worth. And whatever we have goals around, what are we actually putting into place in terms of step by step, like in reality? How are we manifesting that? What are the boundaries I establish for myself and for the things I value, for my relationships? What's the container I'm creating for that? Because Venus is how we give and receive affection, and because Saturn could be very kind of serious and disciplinarian and authoritative, it often is understood to be, a limitation to our affection, right? A little bit of a coldness in relationship. Look at that for yourself in that week, right? Where do I have appropriate boundaries in place, and where don't I? Or where is someone else sort of cold to me, and where, I don't know what that looks like for you, but it's an interesting energy to observe. I will say that one thing I look at as an astrologer around just our understanding as adults, like, what does committed long-term love relationship look like? I look at in a chart the first time Saturn conjoins your natal Venus, right? Because Venus in your chart shows you very much a lot about your love language. How do you give and receive love and affection? What is it that you consider, something like, what do you find beautiful in others? What are you attracted to? And then Saturn comes along to that at some point in the first 28 to 30 years of your life. That's a Saturn cycle. So depending where Saturn was relative to Venus when you were born, it might happen in the first years of life. It might not happen until you're 26 years old. But at whatever point Saturn first conjoins your Venus, it's teaching you something about what you understand adult, long-term, successful, committed love and relationship to look like. So the fact that Saturn and Venus together are conjoining in the world for all of us, and in Pisces, which is very romantic, actually, very idealistic, dreamlike, You know, what is possible? What do I imagine? What is my fantasy of what adult committed romantic love might look like? That might give us some information, but I'd also encourage you to go back and look at your chart. And if you need help, you can reach out to me to figure out like what is that first messaging that maybe you subconsciously, unconsciously took on at that moment in your life when Saturn first hit your Venus? What did you make that mean about relationship? And now that's happening, and you get a revisit of that in a more like, like open way of like, well, what else might be possible? And now the eclipses are happening in Aries Libra, also pushing you beyond the patterns that you've established in your life around relationship between self and other, and maybe asking you to grow around what else is possible. What haven't you seen? Right. So I think this is a really interesting reset for us this spring. Um, Anyway, that's what I have for you. There's always more we could talk about. Please reach out to me if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you want to explore your chart. And I will link below the video on other, spring equinox energies so you can explore that as well. All right, you guys, I will see you later in April. Have a wonderful beginning to spring.